All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unravel a really thrilling mystery centered around a single, seemingly mundane object, a pine cone. Now, if you're like most people, you probably just see a pine cone as, a bit of woodland debris. But what if I told you that across different dimensions of storytelling, deep philosophy, and even ancient history, the pine cone acts as a powerful symbol of existential danger, cognitive illusion, and the chaotic noise of the material world? Seriously, we're going to look at some wildly different sources today, connecting a children's fantasy adventure to a post-apocalyptic philosophical journey, and ultimately taking us all the way back to the bustling markets of the ancient Roman Empire. So, picture this. Our journey kicks off in a dark, stormy forest with a rare creature called a cacaloop. It looks a bit like a squirrel, but it's got this dark fur like stormy clouds and tiny little horns on its head. Imagine the sheer, absolute panic in this creature's eyes. It is running for its life, frantically screeching, pushing ferns out of the way, and clutching onto a single pine cone like its very existence depends on it. The cacaloop isn't just fleeing a predator. It's carrying this pine cone toward an exhausted old crone, yelling totally inexplicable words in pure desperation. Section 1, a horrifying secret. We're stepping into the pretty, perilous fantasy world of a 10-year-old girl named Lira. Late one night in the Chestnut Woods, she encounters that same exhausted old lady whose name is Inga. Inga hands Alara what appears to be a completely ordinary pine cone, but she pairs it with a really chilling command. She says, "My life is depending on it. Not just my life, a lot of people's lives. Maybe even all of our lives." Just like that, with those exact words, the pine cone is instantly transformed from a piece of literal forest floor litter into a high-stakes plot device. It becomes this highly charged object of protection that thrusts Alara into a wild, unpredictable journey full of talking animals and incredibly dark secrets. As Alara's adventure unfolds, we learn that this chaotic little object actually holds a horrifying secret. Her journey takes her to a town called Paddle Frog Creek, where she's searching for the clairvoyant, hoping to find some answers to life's biggest questions. And what our sources hint at is that the horrifying secret of this pine cone is actually intricately connected to the mysterious contents of a dream vial. So in this narrative context, the pine cone represents an intense, tangible anchor to a really chaotic and dangerous physical world. But wait, what happens when the physical world just stops altogether? How do you find home in absolute darkness? We're going to use this question to pivot completely. We are stepping right out of Alara's magical forest and into the post-apocalyptic universe of a speculative story called The Quest for Balance. In this world, a terrifying cosmic event known as stonification has occurred. All physical constants have collapsed. Matter has literally frozen in place. Because molecules have stopped vibrating, there is absolute silence. And because electrons have stopped transitioning and emitting photons, the world has plunged into absolute pitch-black darkness. Section 2. The illusion of similarity. Which brings us to Lira. She is a woman navigating this frozen, silent street, desperately trying to find her true home. Since she obviously can't see or hear a thing, she has to rely entirely on touch to find a very specific large oak tree in her garden. This situation brilliantly illustrates the core philosophical conflict of our explainer today. Her companion Kenneth, who's got this very proactive nature, goes searching and triumphantly shouts out that he's found the tree. But when Lira bends down, she feels pine cones. Kenneth hasn't found the oak tree. He's found a spruce. A moment later, another companion, William, finds a totally different tree. Lira feels the ground, finds acorns, and confirms, yes, this is her true home. So what does this all mean? Well, in Lira's world, the pine cone represents the noise of misidentification. It is the ultimate false positive. It represents a path that feels like progress. I mean, Kenneth did actually find a large tree, right? But it's actually a massive deviation from her soul's true home. This right here is the cognitive trap of perceived association. Kenneth relied on a general form, the shape of a tree, but he lacked the specific discernment required to distinguish truth from mere appearance. The pine cone acts as an epistemological warning for us. We often see things through the filter of our own limited models, rather than seeing them for what they truly are. Section 3. Ontological negation and rebirth. Okay, let's see how this builds into an even deeper framework. In the text's Invariance ontology, the pine cone carries profound metaphysical weight through a concept called ontological negation. Sounds intense, right? Basically, it's the generative act of defining a thing by what it is not, which then creates boundaries and distinctions in space. Think about it. Absolute, undifferentiated being is just pure potential without actual structure. To generate space and reality, this absolute plenitude has to undergo negation. Lira actually uses the pinecones in this exact way. She defines her true home by what it is not. The false path of the spruce tree and its pinecones serves as a totally necessary contrast, an ontological negation that allows her to firmly locate the structural invariant of her actual home. This source text describes this through the interplay of two fundamental cosmic forces. First up, assertion. This is the movement toward presence, unity, silence, and the unmanifest source. Second, we have negation. This is the movement toward absence, difference, and void. Now, negation isn't destruction here. Actually, it's what generates difference and concrete forms. It's the mechanism that ensures the universe gives birth to structured space. The pine cones in the neighbor's yard represent this necessary negation, the other that basically carves out the boundary of where Lira truly belongs. Because of this, the pinecone is deeply tied to the cycle of rebirth. But hold on, in this specific philosophical framework, rebirth isn't exactly the goal. Rebirth into material roles or successive time-bound states is seen as a condition where the soul remains bound by time, change, and multiplicity. To reach true liberation, Lira actually has to bypass this rebirth into the neighbor's garden. She must transcend the scattered multiplicity of the pinecones to find the singular, invariant truth. Section 4. Signal versus noise. Let's synthesize everything we've looked at into one clear picture. On one side, we have the pinecone. It acts as the noise, the false positive. Metaphysically, it embodies multiplicity, the physical chaos of the material world, and that endless cycle of time-bound rebirth. On the other side, we have the acorn. The acorn is the signal. It's the marker of the true home, representing liberation and invariant essential truth. The pinecone is the obstacle, the illusion of similarity that absolutely must be transcended to pass the trial of existence. To really drive this home, consider a fascinating artifact from the 1st century AD. It's a bronze acorn-shaped counterweight that was used on a Roman steelyard, which is an ancient balance scale found in Paphos, Cyprus. Why an acorn of all things? Because in antiquity, the acorn, connected to the mighty oak and deities like Zeus and Athena, was a symbol of divine fairness, holy wisdom, and the legitimacy of a transaction. It literally represented objective truth in trade. Just as the ancients relied on the acorn to guarantee truth and bypass the noise of cheating in the marketplace, Lira relies on the acorn to find the ultimate truth of her home, leaving the pinecone behind as mere distraction. Which leaves us with a pretty compelling thought to wrap up today's explainer. In the absolute darkness of the material world, amidst all the chaos and the illusions of similarity, what pine cones are distracting you from finding your true acorn? What false positives are you clinging to? And what do you need to negate to find your ultimate structural truth? Take a moment to just think about that. Thanks for joining me today, and keep questioning the noise.